up your engines! People often say Porsches are endless money pits. Here's something that's the exact opposite. This was purchased for $4,000. Now, it didn't have the funky paint job on it then, it was just normal. And in a couple weeks, it's going to be wrapped. And I'll show you that. And it'll really look sharp then. But in terms of mechanics, if you take care of them, you buy the right one cheap enough, you can have some cheap fun with a Porsche. Now, originally, this Cayenne S was about a $58,000 car. So you can save a lot of money buying a used one. Now, believe it or not, this Porsche used to be owned by a pastor at the 101st Airborne here. Now, why a pastor would want to drive like a bat out of you-know-what is beyond me, but that was the case. And when he got tired of it, he sold it to the present owner for $4,000. And if you listen to it, check it out. It runs like a clock. Now, it does have 170,000 miles on it. It shows that German technology, when it works, can still work quite well. Sure, the paint's a joke, like I said, until they decide to wrap the thing and make it look nice. But if you take care of these things, it can go a long way. Got a lot of power. Of course, they handle like a dream. We'll show you later when we're driving around. Want to have one of these things? Why not do like he did? If you can find an older one that still runs good, you can have a lot of fun at a relatively low price. And this one even came with this fancy Alpine setup that you can do all kinds of things. You can remap ECUs. It does just about everything, and it came with the vehicle. Now, as we check under the hood, this is not antique technology boxer engines. This is a modern Porsche engine. And with their all-wheel drive system, you're not going to get stuck. And with this paint job, you're not going to care if you get in the mud. And since this one already looks like it went through the zombie apocalypse, hey, if it does happen, you're all set up already. They'll never catch you in this thing. Now, maybe getting a little bit old, but man, it's still comfy. The leather seats were thick enough. They're not even worn out yet. Very comfortable. Got the Tiptronic transmission in it. You can shift it yourself or let the machine do it all. Play with the all-wheel drive all you want with the different settings. Of course, there's plenty of room in the back. Germans are rather large people. I know, I have many German relatives who are large. And since you can drive them like a maniac, well, everybody's got a little handhold here. So don't have to worry about your lateral sway. Now, I used to live inside here, but the last big wind in Tennessee kind of mangled this little house. But as you can see inside, actually, it's a nice little house here. The wind just kind of destroyed some of the metal. And they could have made it a little bit stronger, I guess. This wasn't built in Deutschland. This was made in China. But enough talk. Let's see how this thing rides. Makes a great sound, being a V8 engine. Almost as good as that Corvette I shot the other day. Up on the gas, this thing goes. But it handles too. This isn't just a straight speed burner. With the all-wheel drive system that it has, you can drive really fast, even in the snow if you know what you're doing. Now, you don't drive these things for gas mileage, but this thing will get 21 miles a gallon on a highway. You know, and that's pretty much equivalent to any modern SUV that's all-wheel drive. I drove a Lexus, and it only got 19 miles a gallon when I drove it from Houston to San Antonio and back, and it was a brand new one. These things have some really good technology in them. If you get them this cheap, $4,000, hey, you can have a lot of fun. Now, sure, this Porsche looks like it just came out of the woods. And sort of it did. Not the Black Forest of Germany, the hills of Tennessee. Now, I do have to say, I would never tell a customer to buy a 911 with this kind of mileage on it. It would be an endless money pit. But you can see with this V8 engine in, you're talking about lower RPMs. You're talking about a stronger built engine. You're talking about an all-wheel drive system that's made to hold up. The Germans have been making all-wheel drive for a long time. And of course, this actually can be a practical vehicle. A lot of room here. The seats come down. Got a lot of space that you can put stuff in comfort. And this one serves as a mobile billboard for Taco Loco. I gotta say, I was worried when I moved to Tennessee, where am I gonna get some good tacos, right? Moving from Houston? Well, these guys make better tacos than they did in Houston. The guys from the Caribbean via Brooklyn, You never know who you're gonna meet. I'm really pleasantly surprised that I can get some great tacos here in Tennessee. You might be surprised what you're gonna find. Heck, they even got a hockey team in Nashville. I really wonder about this. It's still the same car. Watch this. He did that as a giant joke. It's just a funny wrap. The paint, as most German things, is still in immaculate shape. Talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, when he rewraps it, he's going to do what he calls a hyper shift. He's going to put a bunch of different colors on, so as you walk around the vehicle, the color keeps changing. There's a lot of stuff you can do with wraps, and we're going to film that when he gets that done, and you get to see how a car is wrapped the right way and all the different choices that you'd have. So if you think about it, for a lot of people, a wrap's the way to go. When I was young, everybody wanted to keep up with the Joneses. So you'd buy a new car every 2 or 3 years, right? Well, why not keep a good car and just wrap it every 2 or 3 years to whatever color or shape or whatever you want to do. You learn how to do it yourself or you pay a guy to do it. It's a heck of a lot cheaper than buying another car. And there's the interesting thing about wrap. It comes right off. Doesn't ruin the paint underneath. You want to go back to regular paint, you can buff it out. You want to repaint it or want to rewrap it, you can go right ahead. It doesn't destroy the paint underneath. Something a lot of people might think about. If you're into changing things, you don't want to spend all your money. So if you thought you could never get a Porsche for $4,000, you don't need this. You can leave it this way if you want. You might be surprised at the deals that are out there. But do take Scotty's advice. Stay away from the Boxer air-cooled engines. If you're talking about old and high mileage, they're endless money pits. These big old V8s, it's another story entirely. If they were taken care of, they're solid built. And a lot of guys that buy these, hey, the chaplain, he didn't work on the car. He paid a good mechanic to take care of it for him. And when you buy a car like this, you can have a lot of fun for a little bit of money. I mean, let's face it, it was $53,000 less than it was new. What do you have to lose? And here's some bonus questions and answers. Well, here's some interesting news for GM and electric cars. The Chevy Bolt posted the highest ever retail sales in September. Now, we're still talking relatively small numbers because in 2019, they only sold about 13,000 of these electric cars. While in 2020, so far, they've sold about 14,000 of them. Not gigantic numbers, but it's increasing. Now, in Mexico, sales of the electric cars actually went down 55%. But when you think about it, they sold 9 in the third quarter of 2019, and they only sold 4 in the third quarter of 2020. So they're not selling like hotcakes or tamales in Mexico. The whole third quarter, they only sold 4 of these things. But at the same time, sales went up 1,500% in Brazil. Because last year in the third quarter, they sold 1. And this year in the third quarter, they sold 6. Like I say, you know, electrification, it's going to take a long time for this stuff to build up and in. But I got to say, I got a customer that's got one, and they're happy with it. You know, they wanted a little electric car. It's got a decent range, and they're totally happy with it. They plug it in their condo at night to recharge it. And, you know, they're happy with the car. The little commuter cars, they're decent for stuff like that, but it's going to be a long time before those things become really popular. I mean, look at Brazil. They sold 1 last year in the third quarter. Now they sold 6, so they're not flying off the shelves. Pete Posati says, I have a rattling noise on my car and a cold start, but it immediately goes away. That's generally something to do with the timing chain or your variable valve timing assemblies. There are many cars that do that as they age, and if you don't want to spend a fortune, you can continue to drive them. I see many Toyotas that are 5, 10 years old with variable valve timing. When they first start them up, they make a rattle that goes away. Some of these have 200,000-300,000 miles on them, but they still run okay. Now, to fix it, you got to change the timing chain. Sometimes you have to mess with the variable valve timing sprocket. Very expensive. But if it immediately goes away, a lot of times you can live with it for quite some time. Realize you're going to spend thousands of dollars rebuilding the engine, repairing stuff. And it's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul when it comes to repairing engines. So you spend a bunch of money fixing that. But if you got 200,000-300,000 miles, your pistons are worn, the bearings are worn, valves are worn, everything's worn. Why would you put that much money into fixing one thing, my advice is you just keep driving them. And then if it finally does go out and the engine blows, you decide, do I want to put another engine in it, a used engine or a rebuild engine, or get another car? That's when you use your head. And realize that, say you got 400,000 miles. Maybe you just get rid of the car. Maybe buy another one. If it's a Toyota Corolla that's got 150,000 and you got a lot more miles left on it. Because a lot of times you can buy one with 150,000 miles for less money it's going to cost you to put an engine in. Realize that. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.